it is a new software that we're using here, so bear with me if it takes me a second to navigate around. Okay, so this is where I start off with a blank Excel document, and you'll notice that over in this area right here, I start pretty much every quote. I can almost do them all. The only thing I'm missing is a triangle that I add in there sometimes for the loop caps on a chain link fence. So this right here, these three things I have preloaded on my Excel sheets, and I'm going to go ahead and do one real quick. I kind of just do a generic one. So I put up here, I go real quick, and I'm going to show you how to do one in less than probably 5 minutes. So LVF, I'm just going to pick a quote, 1001. We're going to assign it. We're going to call it Don Jones. 121, 1212 South Jones Street. Vegas. I'm having a hard time spelling my own city right now. 89111. Contact, that's where I would do his name again, unless it was somebody else. If it was commercial, then we would have, like maybe that customer name might have been XYZ fence or not XYZ commercial property of something, and then you'd have a Don Jones as the contact with the number 702 452. Fingers are fat today. 1212. And I'm going to do a simple chain link fence. So I'm going to call it chain link. Oh man, my keyboard's not working in here. Call it chain link, and it is a 6-foot high fence. And I have my drawing that I just did a quick sketch. You're going to have a hard time seeing it, but I'm going to show it to you on the drawing. So I'm going to add this up real quick, get my calculator, and I'm just going to get the total footage. I always do the total footage, including the gates. So 41, 4, plus 12, plus 8, plus 75, plus 8. So I've got 148 feet. So I'm going to put that in there. And notice it says include gates over here, and hopefully it's not blurry at your end. We're going to try to figure out which platforms work best with it sharing the screen. So I'm going to put 1 5/8. We'll go 1 7/8. It's not very often we use 1 5/8 even for a line post. So we're going to put line post 1 7/8, end posts 2 3/8, gate posts 2 and we'll put 7/8. And 2 3/8. Since we have a gate on this, you haven't seen it yet, but we have a drive gate and a walk gate. So we'll probably use 2 3/8 on the walk gate. Top rail is going to be 1 3/8. And I know I'm going to get tons of comments back on why I'm using that material, but I'm just making this up as we go here on this. So I don't have a style 2, but if I had a 4-foot or 5-foot tall fence or something, I could fill that in here. So I just put NA right there just because we're not going to be using it. I typically put a color in there. I put galvanized, and everything I put on this is to protect me later. If customer says, hey, salesperson or somebody said we were going to get a black chain link or green chain link, and I just throw what it is in there. So I'll come down to gates. According to my drawing, I've got one 12-foot by 6-foot double gate. Oh man, okay. Double gate. And I've got one 3-foot by 6-foot walk gate. Now I don't get too much into detail on this quote because we don't want to confuse it when it comes down to what kind of hardware we're using. Unless it's a specialty hardware, everything is figured with us, just a basic pin hinges and a fork latch or a drop rod or whatever the standard would be for that. So I am going to actually add the street. I always believe there should be a street. I didn't have the clear line for that. So I'm going to go ahead and put this to represent the street. And let's get a word art I use for all my text. That way I can move it around. If you are using Excel, You can type into the Excel blocks, but it makes it really hard to make your quote look professional because you have a really hard time moving those around short of telling it to be on the left or the right of the box or in the center. So I use this for everything. So I'm going to go Jones Street. And you can adjust that by just simply clicking this, open it up. And I'm going to move kind of quick just so I can show you that these things shouldn't take 30 minutes. Obviously, I could go into detail on each one of these things and make each thing I'm doing take another 3 or 4 minutes. But I'm going to do one pretty quick. And then if somebody wants to has a question or wants to get a little bit more detailed, they can just let me know. Hopefully, I haven't seen any questions pop up. But if you have anything you just want to have a quick question on, feel free to comment in there if it lets you. So I'm going to draw the house, and this is going to be moved. I'm going to call this the house, and I control, when I'm hovering above it, I use this for everything. You'll notice that I use this square a lot, and I just reshape it. So I'm going to go Control C, Control V, and that gives me a second one. So I know this property has a wall in the back. So I'm going to go ahead and put the wall across there way beyond, and I'm going to right click it. And by hitting Format Shape, if this wasn't open over here, say this was closed on that right side, if you right click it and you hit go to the bottom of that, you can't quite see it, but you hit Format Shape, and that opens up this right side over here. And that's where you can actually change the fill. And then we're going to go to fill. We're going to go to pattern. And there's a ton of stuff you can do inside here with the patterns. And I'd love to get into probably another video where I explain to what you can really do in here. Now, I just made this look like a block wall right here. So I'm going to go shrink that down a little bit. And this never looks right unless you have the line on it is 1, and it's already set to 1 here. But sometimes I already had that block set to 1 line, but sometimes it spits you back automatically with like a 3-point line. And then you notice how the wall doesn't look right. So you definitely have to go back in and adjust that if you don't have it preset like I did. So you're going to take that back down to 1. Okay, so that is your back wall that you're going to be coming off of. Now, on this side of the house, we had a double gate. It's a little laggy when I'm trying to share the screen, so that's making it hard for me, my mouse. Okay, so we have a double gate coming about the center of this one. And I keep Control C, Control C, Control V. That gives me that just copy and paste it. So then I'm going to bring it back up here. It's lagging a little bit. It's a lot quicker when you're actually on Excel and not sharing it. So I keep Control C and I keep Control V again. That way it keeps giving me more of these. And I'm drawing this, and I know this is a little crooked. There we go. So I'm going to move this down. And I'll show you in a second why I have that other line over there. This one comes over to the front of the house. You are watching. It looks like there's some people watching. Thanks for watching live. That's pretty cool. And I know some of you will be probably watching this after the recording comes out. So thank you for that as well. Again, we're going to be doing just some member resources here for you guys to get it out there for free. So if there's something you want us to actually highlight or feature in one of the videos coming up, let me know. We're going to be doing these FWA live streams pretty regularly. So Control C, Control V. This time I'm going to do a walk gate, and I like to hang, anytime there's a gate, I like to hang it off the fence rather than off a post by itself or up a wall. We personally at Las Vegas Fence, my rule that's been out there for a long time is you don't hook to somebody's house unless you absolutely have to, and it better be in writing on there that we're hooking to it. Otherwise, my guys aren't supposed to be hooking to somebody's house. And that's just because we don't want the liability of it, and it never seems to hold as good as a post. So even if we go against a house, we set a post, and if we hit a footer for the house, we either jackhammer through it, core drill it, or whatever we got to do. So I'm not going to draw that on there, the post or anything. So I am going to put the neighbor's fence. So the neighbor has an existing fence, and that's where this dashed line comes in. And you can or you don't have to put it on, but I like to put the existing fence if something is connecting to it. And make sure they know, because a lot of times this gets transferred over even part of the work order. So we like to make sure it's real clear. And I'm going to go ahead and use this. Again, you'll see I use Control C, Control V a lot. I use a lot of the same elements. And it looks like we had 75 feet. And I'm going to shrink this down because it doesn't need to be as big as the street. And this is just more for the customer to understand as well, that you understand what he wants. And I think that it's a really big deal to make sure that customer understood that you were paying attention. And this is how you do that. So this side's 41 feet. And I'm just Control C, Control V when I do that. Like right now, you could just click on it. I click on that little arrows because I don't know, for some reason that grabs it better. I'm going to go Control C, Control V. And you notice how it darkened up. That means there's another one in there. So we've got 8 feet over here. And Control C, Control V. I'm going to go ahead and say what this is. 12 foot by 6 foot. Double gate. And I'm going to go ahead and grab an arrow from shapes. You go up. I don't know if it's coming through for you guys. So a drop down, once I hit shape, a drop down, which is recently used shapes. And since I use the arrow a lot, it's in my recently used, so I don't have to search very far. But I grab that one and then I can draw an arrow on here. And what I think is really important is you notice how the actual new fence itself it's actually a number 3 black line. And if you're not careful and you don't actually make it really clear what's the new fence and what's the existing fence, and you never should every line be the same. Otherwise, it just doesn't look right when you're doing it. So you'll notice that's a big, thick black, and the existing one is a dashed, and it's a blue dashed line, just because I want to make it clear what we're doing. So since I already did, I'm going to go back over to here where I do that. I'm going to Control C, Control V, where it's a double gate. And this time, I'm going to change that to a 3 foot by 6 foot block gate. And what's going to really speed this up for you guys, if you do want to do it this way, is once you learn the Control C, Control V, and all the features, you're going to be able to do one quicker because you're not going up and grabbing that. You're not going up and going up into the top here and grabbing that box or grabbing that line every time. If you can work with what's in your screen here, it's a lot quicker. So I like to make notes. This is your chance to really show the customer you were paying attention. And plus, I don't want it to be ever confusing that we were going to be building a wall for them if it wasn't in the quote or something. So I put existing wall, and I'll just put that near it, and I'll Control C, Control V, and then I'll even come down here and go. And this also makes your quote. I think it makes your quote look better. I mean, I don't know if it does to everybody, but I'll even sometimes, I know customers like to see this kind of stuff, and they're trying to, just to make it clear so they don't wonder what that was. I'll put house. If I can spell house right. And again, some of you guys might do this a little bit differently, and I'll just put that in there, wall, the street, that. Now, here's, I think, one of the most important parts of actually doing a quote. And this has saved us 100 times, because I don't want a customer thinking, oh, I was getting top rail, I was getting tension wire, I was getting this, and then you got to try to refer them over to this. A customer isn't really going to read this as much as they're going to look at this. You want to draw them to, when they first open your quote up, to look at your actual drawing, and their eyes will be drawn to it. So I'm going to draw the actual chain link fence. I'm going to show you how I would draw the 6 foot chain link. And again, I'm going to use pretty much everything here, except I'm going to have to get a triangle, but I'm going to draw this fence. I'm just going to put it right here. There's always room somewhere for it. So I make this post a little bit longer. I'm going to go, this one had a top rail, so I'm going to put a top rail on it. And I always do a line. I never do an end or a corner, because then you got to draw all the fittings and you got to do it a little bit differently. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a triangle. The only thing that was missing, and that's because on every one of them, only chain link do you really need to grab this triangle. So I'm going to go ahead and just put that on there. Again, I just Control C, Control V. I'm going to keep making these squares, and I'm going to use them for whatever I want. And I'm going to hit Format Shape. It was already open, but I just to keep, it's a habit I get into. So I'm going to go grab this shape. Now you can fill and change the shape to this chain link looking one. And then I'm going to, normally I would go right down and get rid of the line, but I'm going to show you what happens if you don't. So notice how it's just a square. So I automatically come over here and I say no line. And then it still looks kind of funky here. So then you right click this over here and you send this to back, and bam, you just now built a chain link fence. So it's that simple to add that to it. And then I'll draw the line just where the ground is. And then I'll Control C, Control V, get another one. I'll put a tension wire. And I don't want to hear everybody telling me my tension wire's a diamond too low or a diamond too high. So anyway, I copy this again. I come over here. And I go 6 feet. And this is your chance to basically show them what they're getting. And they can't come back and say they're getting something different. And I go up to Insert. I'm going to go to Shapes again. This time I'm going to grab an arrow that goes like this. The double arrow, kind of like you do. I use Excel to do a lot of shop drawings and things like that. So now it doesn't have to be perfect, but what you did do was made it real clear to this customer, this is what they're getting. So had you not had, I'm having a hard time moving that arrow. It's just this lag. Sorry about the lag. So anyway, you made it real clear that this is what you're getting, a 6 foot tall chain link fence. And this one has a top rail, but say it didn't have a top rail. I'm going to take the top rail out and I'm just going to delete that top rail. And I'm going to add another tension wire. Well, maybe it has a tension wire on it. So if you sold them a chain link fence with tension wire on it and they thought they were getting top rail, there's no confusion later after they signed your contract that you were selling them one with tension wire. And if it was anything other than top rail, I would go as far as to do this. Only because that is the only thing that could come back and bite you. Next thing you know, you're breaking even on this job because you've got to come back and change that to top rail, or because if there's anything that if you ever, which luckily we haven't had to go in front of judges and things, but if you ever do talk to contractors board, judges, things like this, and there's any kind of confusion about what you were selling them and what was quote, it always go towards the customer. So I would write tension wire. And again, I would come up here. I could have copy and pasted the arrow down there, but I would put tension wire there, and that just made it really clear that we're doing a tension wire. But this one doesn't have tension wire, so I probably shouldn't have that on there because I wrote that. But if I did that, I'd have to go back over here and change that to tension wire. Okay, now that whole process is pretty much what it takes to actually do the quote. And you can see, let me see if I can shrink this down so you can see the quote. It doesn't give you the price. Obviously, I can't help you come up with a price. That's on you guys. So I'm going to try to shrink this down to a different price. But anyway, that's the basics. I couldn't shrink that down. That's the basics to doing a quote using Excel. The pricing, you would have to change the terms, change whatever you got. I mean, we have different deposit down payments. Say this thing was $4,300. I would put the price there. And what we've done now was we've created a quote that I wish I could zoom this out. Let me try to zoom this out so you can see the whole quote. Okay, so there's the whole quote. So now when you get somebody, let me get rid of that caption so it's not blocking you guys. So now when you go out and show this to somebody, their eyes, just like yours, is focused on that drawing and not on this price down here. You want them to you got this split second. When you go to even I don't want it to sound like a car lot, but if you go to a car lot, they're not focused on the price. They're going to try to show you all the features of the car. In this case, you have a small amount of time to explain to them that you understood what they want. And I believe that the drawing is important. So that does come back to, does the drawing help you sell the job? Absolutely. I don't care what anybody says. I think it's insane for you to go through all this work and not spend that extra 5 minutes it takes to help close the deal. I don't care if you're an order taker or a salesperson. If you're doing a quote and you don't send out a drawing that took you 5 minutes, you're failing the company that hired you. And you wouldn't work for me very long, that's for sure. But nonetheless, that's all it takes to get a quote out. And then I would send the quote out, and I'll show you how we convert this over. You go up here and you save. I would save the Excel copy into a file. I have a file that everything goes into, our quotes for 2022, 2021. I save the Excel file, but I'm going to skip that and go straight to converting it to a PDF if you're not sure. And let's go desktop. I created a blank one here. So I'm going to save it into here. And I would change the name to LVF, whatever the quote was, because I don't want to keep saving over my blank one. So I'd be LVF 212. I don't remember what it was. So I'd call it Don Jones if that was the name of it. And right here, I would save the Excel copy, but then I'd go back and resave again, and I would save it come down here to PDF. And I don't know if that showed up on your end. And actually, I'm going to change the screen to show you how to save it if you're not sure how to save it. Okay, this should be better. You should be able to see this now. Okay, so now you can see it. So when I come over here, you go down into here, and a big list pops up. So you can save it as an Excel, or you could save it at all these different formats. Only formats I use is Excel, which is the Excel workbook, or PDF, which is right here. So you save this as a PDF, and then you've got the change the name again. I'm going to go into the correct folder. You never want to save as that blank, your blank bid one. Otherwise, when you go back, you'll have to delete everything you just did, and you don't start with a blank one. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to call it LVF 2121 Don Jones PDF, and I'm going to hit save. And that just saved into that folder. So now, if you want to see what it looks like, where is it? Okay. So I'm going to go open that folder. Don Jones. Here is the PDF. And that's your quote. That's all it takes. And then I would send this off, and I would attach it to an email. And if I was actually out, or I would take it out. I mean, ideally, you would want to go walk this thing out to a customer if you can, because it's $43,000. That's where our folders come in. Now, again, I'm old school. So if you can actually physically look at them in the eyes, or after you sent the quote, I would be, hey, Don, this is Brian, Las Vegas Fence Company. I just want to let you know that quote is in your email. I wouldn't send a text message. I wouldn't send an email letting them know I sent it. I would actually get on the phone and say, hey, just letting you know that it's in there. And you any questions, let me know. If it's a matter of a few dollars, I'd really like to do this job. It's definitely a great fit for our company. And, if you get another quote, feel free to reach out to me and blah, 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 blah. That's what I would end up doing. And I would make that contact with them. And most likely they would open it up, and then they would look at the drawing and they'd be happy. If I was out in the field, I would have folders. If you haven't created this, you're losing out, because you've already spent a lot of money on this quote and time and money generating the lead. And every one of these folders we have, I'm going to kind of get out of this share screen. So every time we do a quote, if it's in the field, it's supposed to have a folder and your business card stapled to it. And we go out there, and yellow, it was us. We had green for another company. But you take your quote. This isn't the quote, but you'd had a printed copy. You take this quote, you put it in there, and after you went over it with the customer, you leave them this. And the reason we've done this, and I've done this for 20 years, is because even if they get a quote from someone else, guess where their quote goes? You're the only one that gave them a folder. Your quote and their quotes, any other quotes they got, is going inside this folder, sitting there on their table on their desk while they're doing it. But every single time they want to review quotes, they have to see Las Vegas Fence. This, for me, it would be you and someone else. And even if they don't go with you, half the time, 3 years later, 4 years later, they can't remember who built their fence half the time. So even if they have to go back, even if they go with someone else, that quote, all the information on that fence, everything is still going to stay in your folder. They're not going to go and get a new folder. They're going to use this. This is going to go inside of their files, wherever they keep for their house and things like that. So forever, your quote and your name is going to be in front of them. So anyway, that's pretty much it. If you had any suggestions, I didn't see any chat. I don't think. Oh, wait, I guess there's a couple. Yeah, somebody says for liability standpoint, this is a lot better than text for sure. That's where it does come down to having that drawing. If somebody tries to come back to you and you just did a comment, nobody understands it and they're not going to read it. If you do have a quote that's just nothing but in that box where you could do the drawing, it says nothing but install 136 feet of, in this case, 148 feet of 6-foot tall fence with 2 gates. They're not even probably going to read that. They're going to go straight to the price. So now you're selling off a price. And I think that's a mistake, to be having customers focus on price instead of what you're actually giving them. And I think everybody will agree with that. So anyway, thank you for that comment. I guess the Facebook comments do come over here. But I think that pretty much wraps this one up. If you have any suggestions, let us know. I don't know how the suggestions work. I'm gonna have to go back and read on the other ones and see what everybody said. Definitely all this stuff's going to be available to download or watch again later on. If you go to fwalive.com, that's going to go over to our YouTube page where you can actually subscribe. It would help me out a lot if you subscribe, because it's going to let me know you guys are actually want to hear the information and we're not just kind of spinning our wheels. FWA, if you want to join FWA, it's pretty simple. Go to fenceworkers.org. I don't know if it's going to allow you to click on these links or not, but we're going to figure out how to make that work for you guys. Click to join. It's free to join. We'd definitely love to get you involved in that stuff too. So anyway, go on there, subscribe, enjoy the rest of your weekend, or if you're watching this later on, the rest of your week, wherever this happens.